Welcome, everybody, to our open studio of the Ocean Virtual Art Residency 7th edition, a collaborative program between Moco Art Studio and Mango Residencia. My name is Frida Verlaje, and I am the director of Moco Art Studio. And this program brings together artists from around the world to explore their connection with the ocean through their creative practice. Over 6 weeks, participants engage in discussions, research, and conversations with our two speakers, Dr. Avery Scherer, who was our science speaker, and Lord Ofei Darko, who was our ancestral knowledge speaker. Nachi?
I will speak in Spanish now. Bienvenidos y bienvenidas al Open Studio de la Residencia Virtual Océano, séptima edición. Un programa y actividad oficial de UNESCO Diseño del Océano. Es un programa colaborativo entre Mango Residencia para Artistas y Moco Art Studio. Yo soy Mercedes Aliaga Porredón, directora de Mango. Este programa reúne a artistas de todo el mundo para explorar su conexión con el océano a través de la práctica creativa. Durante 6 semanas, los participantes formaron parte de debates, investigación y conversaciones con nuestros 2 ponentes, la doctora Avery Scherer de Estados Unidos y nuestro ponente como ponente científica, y Lord Ofei Darko de Ghana, África, nuestro ponente de saberes ancestrales. Este Open Studio ofrece una mirada a su proceso, presentando obras que celebran la belleza, el océano, mientras también tenemos esta misión del diseño de las ciencias oceánicas de las Naciones Unidas para salvaguardar y restaurar nuestro planeta azul. Los invitamos a quedarse hasta el final, donde compartiremos el link a la exposición en vivo y, por supuesto, a conectar con los artistas cuyas obras están viendo hoy. Estamos increíblemente orgullosos de este grupo de artistas y del trabajo que crearon durante la residencia. Esperamos que su trabajo los inspire tanto como a nosotros. Frida.
This open studio offers a glimpse into their process, featuring works that celebrate the ocean's beauty while supporting the UN Ocean Decade's mission to safeguard and restore our blue planet. We invite you to stay until the end because we will be sharing a link to the live exhibition and, of course, connect with the artists whose work you're going to be seeing today. We are incredibly proud of this group of artists and the work they created during the residency, and we hope that their work inspires you as much as it inspires us. And we will begin with our first artist, Kweli Kitwana, who is a mixed media artist whose work explores the relationship between memory, material, and belonging. Working with cyanotype, collage, botanical pigments, printmaking, painting, fiber, and reclaimed photographs, she creates work that honors the overlooked histories while imagining possibilities for remembrance, repair, and liberation. Kweli.
Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. Thank you for joining today. I am going to share my screen. I'm going to talk really fast because one of the things, okay, share screen. Okay, so can you see the full screen now, everyone?
Yes.
Great. I am going to run pretty quickly through my slides because at the end I have a little over 3-minute video to give you a closer look of my work. Right now, I want to talk a little bit more about my process. I actually live part-time on a boat at the Berkeley Marina, and I'm exploring my relationship with the ocean. And in addition to that, because I feel like the ocean is part of the world, the land, and ancestral memories. So I have a contemporary relationship with the ocean. I began my process by reflecting on my on the interconnection of the ocean and the ecosystem, the ocean atmosphere, land, plants, and humans, and I explored and researched the memory of movement. So I used this exploration to connect to the ocean and what it means for me personally, and also my reflections I have while I'm on my boat. I use materials, primarily fiber and paper and dyes and pigments to create. I created these materials. So one of the things I mostly connected with at the very beginning is acknowledging that the ocean actually connects people and have done this for thousands of years. Typically, this has happened in so many ways over these thousands of years, including the route for enslavement, colonization, displacement, and extraction and the movement of resources and capitalism. This is a image of a photo of my floating studio. I actually have a very tiny, small working studio on my boat, which was an important part for me. My boat is a vintage 28 feet motor yacht, and it's a sacred space for me where I find unapologetic peace and reflection. For my process, what I did was I spent 90% of my time creating my materials and infusing those materials into my work. So I created stories by engaging with people who I know and don't know about their connections to water. I foraged and collected plants in order to create plant dyes. I collected waters at the marina and from individuals who sent me waters with their water stories. I infused pigments from the earth, memories, and emotions into my art. My space and the process shaped a composition and narrative, and it became more about me and my own interconnection with the ocean. So these are sketches that I initially created to formulate my pigments and figure out my palette and how I wanted to work the materials into my work. The materials for my work carries history. They carry my ancestral stories, and also it is about my ancestors, and it's about their complete life and my complete life and the culture and knowledge systems that I practice. So therefore, my 4 works move through that understanding. The works are titled Before the Crossing, The Water Witness, What Survived the Crossing, and I Carry Them Forward. So I'm going to give you a brief glimpse of these pieces, and you can read more when you click on my information. Also, I'm willing to send it to you if you want it, if you reach out to me on my website. So the materials, as I say, became an integral part of that story. I work with indigo, I work with plant dye, earth pigments, cotton, linen, cyanotype, dyed paper, clay, stitching, beads. Became very meditative. I also included infusing water stories from people about their own water stories. I intentionally allow each panel to develop its own materials and visual language. Memory is not uniform, it's not linear, and so therefore you'll see a lot of fragmentation, a lot of disappearing of materials in and out and resurfacing and the transformation that carried forward in my story. The 4 panels, I will share each of them with you, and in the end, what I'll do is give you a view of my panels on my boat, because that's actually a big part of experiencing and having immersion experience of the materials. And you can actually look closer and see the light shining through them and some very specific manipulations that I did with my panels. So here's a page just thanking everyone who's been involved in my process. So this panel is Before the Crossing. This is made of art pigments. And by the way, I'm going to flip through all of these pretty fast because I want you to immerse in them. It's earth pigments and paints, plant dye, cotton fabric, and I use gemstones and found materials. This panel is The Water Witness. It is a mixed media of indigo and cyanotype, and I used a lot of paper and stitching and found items. This particular panel is primarily paper. It's torn. There are over 200 hand-torn pieces in this piece. It was a very meditative process for me, which is particularly important to most of my pieces. And go back to this piece, which is also depicting the Brook slave diagram, which depicts over 450 captured Africans during the transatlantic slave trade. This final panel is unfinished, and I really like it because I'm unfinished. It's actually a representation of myself and the currents around me. The fish is a symbol of abundance and freedom.
Okay, we're seeing it.
Thank you so much, Quelly. And if you are in the Bay Area, maybe Quelly can put it on the chat. She will also be have a little mini open studio of her pieces at a later date.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Kuweli. I will speak in Spanish now to briefly communicate what you just said. Entonces, Kuweli Kitwana es una artista interdisciplinaria cuya obra explora la relación entre la memoria, el material y la pertenencia, al trabajar con cianotipia, collage, pigmentos botánicos creados por ella, grabado, pintura, fibra y fotografía recuperadas, crea obtener historias que honran a memorias ignoradas mientras imagina posibilidades de memoria, reparación y liberación. Muchas gracias. Frida.
Our next artist is Paula. Paula Santa Vicente Perez's name comes from her great-grandmother, whom she never met, but whom her mother loved dearly. She is passionate about the sea, and every time she reaches a shoreline, it beckons her to stay. She loves the smell of salt and living inland and finds it in popcorn and crisps. Paula.
Well, hi, everyone. Okay, so I have made a PowerPoint presentation to explain a little bit of the process that I've been through this residency and what I have learned from the time and from the people I have met. Let me share. It's the window. Okay. Can you see properly?
Yes, we can see.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so the things that. Okay, yes. So this is myself. I'm a writer. I studied English literature in Salamanca University, which is my hometown as well. My published work, it's the only one I have, is La herencia de las hechiceras, which in English is the sorcerer's heritage. So from what you can guess from the title, I normally write about women, myths, legends. I get inspired from that, nature, and home. What does home mean? What does why is important to everyone? The type of writing I do is magical realism. I trade up the path of magical realism, which is basically it's a writing form that treats magic and fantasy as ordinary, as reality. And most of my writing is symbolic and descriptive, so I don't really describe or take a lot of room for actions and dialogues. But I decided for today to bring some of pictures from myself and from my family, because my art piece from this residency is going to be always related to my family, to my real family. So you see here, well, I don't know if you see the point. So this is my mom, this is my dad, this is my sister, my granddad, and my grandmother, and this is myself. And this is my family from my mother's side. And I do not have a photo from my father's side because we are not that close. But I think this absence or this lack of, I don't know, closeness is also present in my writing as well. This piece is based on my grandfather's death. So when he passed away, I started to see how everyone was passing through their own grief, and that's where the project started. Okay, this presentation is divided into 3. So apparently 3 is a magical number for me, because as you will see, I always divide everything in 3. But so I'll explain from where did we start, from where or what work did I do before the residency. Secondly, I will focus on what I have achieved and what I have done during the residency, and then finally what needs to be done afterwards. Okay, so from where did we start? So firstly, I pictured a fictional family, and I did like a family tree. So as you see here, these 3 circles are the main characters of the novel. I guess it's going to be a novel, because the novel is going to be divided into 3 pieces, so 3 fragments. the granddaughter, the mother, and the grandfather. Each of them is going to be represented by a natural element. So the grandfather is going to be the air, the mother is going to be the earth, and the granddaughter is going to be the ocean, the water. But I projected, or I imagine, more generations, because I also wanted to explore how family secrets and how traumas or fears goes along generation after generation after generation, and as a part of a heritage as well. So, but for this residency, I have focused on Alba, which is who is the granddaughter, as she represents the ocean, she represents the water. I also had, before the residency, a kind of a map. I drew a map of the home that I didn't know at that time what use I could take from it, but now I do. I'll explain later, but now I do. And you have here the living room, the bedroom, the kitchen, and I have written in pen key elements that I think I'm going to incorporate in the writing, such as, well, yes, I can zoom in. So this is a trunk, or you see here, I don't know, a puzzle or some photos, or I don't know, a crest, like the representation of the religion. And I have also been collecting from before and during this residency some anecdotes that I've been told by my family and my boyfriend's family. So I just taking notes of all of it, maybe for future, I don't know. Okay, so where are we now? Okay, the residency for me was my time to get to know Alba, the main character. So I achieved to know her a little bit, but there are still things to figure out. But I did like a police report, let's say, or something like that, with her personal information. So like physical description, where is she concerning society? Is she working? Is she looking for a job? And some emotions that she may have. So for example, she's a perfectionist. She's a searcher. That's why I included this picture here. That is the only picture that you'll see from Alba. There's no description. She likes silence, or she's afraid of golpes, like knocks, as a way to represent this fear that goes alone in the family from the Spanish Civil War. Okay, what else? Okay, I did some research as well, and now I know what Alba is going through. Okay, I focus my work on the hero's journey, which is a type of structure that many books follow. So, for example, the Odyssey or Star Wars. But as you will see, I adapted it a little bit. So it's not the same, but kind of. And I took most of the information from Campbell's The Hero's Journey. You want to take a look? Apart from that, I was also inspired by the salmon's migration that we were told during the residency. But I thought that I had to zoom in and in and in. So it's not about salmon, it's about the Atlantic salmon. And it is not about the salmon itself when the fish is adult, but when it is a smolt. Okay, I think keeping saying the Spanish word for smolt, but I didn't know there was an English word for that. So smolt, which is the previous step for a salmon to be an adult. So when it feels ready, it starts the migration from the river to the ocean. So this is the kind of trip that I feel that Alba is doing as well. She's passing through a kind of type of journey of maturation and becoming an adult, if you understand me. So yeah, so that's basically the hero and the smolt at the same time, finding, I don't know, becoming an adult, becoming something else. Okay, I can't wait. Ooh. Okay, so as you see, I modified a little bit the journey that Alba is taking. So she will start from the ordinary world, from the world that she feels safe and comfortable, and this world is inland, is along alongside a river, and she has to do this trip to her homeland, to the ocean, as the salmon does, as the smolt does, to become mature, to be an adult, and to face the grief and to her own family for that. Okay, this is, before telling you what I have done, this is the house that I talk about. So the empty house is going to be like the big trouble, or the big problem for her, the big crisis. But in the residency, I focus on the threshold. So it's just the beginning of the journey. She has made her mind, and she has decided to start traveling. So she's passing through from the comfortable to the uncomfortable and to the unknown. And I have included 2 paragraphs from the chapter that I want to read to you. I have to apologize to my colleagues, but because I realized that the ocean is not yet there. It is in the background, but it's more about the river because it's passing through river ocean. But I promise the ocean is there in the background because she reaches the ocean at the end. Okay, so the train sets off like a river at its source. Renfe thanks you for choosing its services and hopes to serve you again on board. The tracks are the riverbed. We leave the city behind. The train's skin stings and the sun scratches it. The rays pierce the surface of the water and reach us through the reading lights. In the depths, we, passengers, adapt to our new environment. The children hatch like tadpoles. Their parents tend to tend them without taking a breath. I begin the small exodus, not knowing if I'll survive the journey. Oh, 1B, I finally found it, says a lady before taking the seat next to me. I look at her, but say nothing. I cross my legs. She slumps back after leaning against the headrest. She clenches her hand and it turns pink. Her thigh brushes against my hip. The warmth of her fresh contrasts with the window's cold exhalation. I move away. The lady moves too. She leans forward to set down a plastic bag. The size of the object is ridiculous compared to her hand. The floor of the train is made of white sand. There are neither stones nor moss on it. Alongside the smolt, other fish are swimming. It fixes its gaze on a large old one because its gills are pink. The movement of its tail disturbs the water and sounds like a trombone. The fish speeds up its song to catch a cool current. The smolt watches it reach the bottom. It rolls around in the sand. It reappears seconds later, swallowing a piece of plastic. Okay, that's it. So that's the beginning of the journey. I'm seeing all the reactions, so thank you very much. And just to conclude, I wanted to finish with the question, what needs to be done? The quick answer is a lot of writing, because I still have to figure out a lot, especially from the other two characters. And I have to complete Alba's journey. But I've been picking some information from trees, especially from fig trees, like the symbolism of it, and especially for Juan's character, from the grandfather, I found really interesting the ancestral knowledge talk that we had, but so I have to go back to it, because I felt it was from Juan's part. And I also included pigeons in both parts, as I think it's going to be important as a type of bird that Juan is going to be represented by. And that's it. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Paula. We have a question from the audience. Do you do your original writing in English?
No, I write in Spanish. I try to translate as much as I can, or as much as I can, but because the translation also helps me to rewrite or to edit the original piece in Spanish. But no, I write in Spanish.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I will go to Spanish now. Entonces, Paula. El nombre de Paula Santa Vicente Pérez proviene de su bisabuela, a quien nunca conoció, pero a quien su madre amaba profundamente. Le apasiona el mar y cada vez que llega a una orilla, ésta la invita a quedarse. Ama el olor a sal y, al vivir en el interior, le encuentra en las palomitas de maíz y en las papas fritas. Quiero compartir brevemente que Paula nos acaba de compartir todo su proceso creativo maravilloso sobre cómo está creando su novela, cree que es su novela, y hasta aquí lo que nos ha compartido al final es un fragmento de un capítulo de el personaje Alba, que va a representar el océano. Está en una transición entre el río y el océano, que se inspiró en el proceso de crecimiento del salmón del Atlántico, y su proceso migratorio también, que va del río al océano cuando está en una etapa que ya se siente maduro o en proceso de madurez. Si quieren saber más sobre este proceso, esta creación, por supuesto los tendremos al tanto a través de nuestras comunicaciones, porque es un proceso largo, pero llegará su resultado. Muchas gracias, Paula. Realmente muy valioso tenerte como escritora en este programa. Frida.
Our next artist is Dana Monslag, who is an interdisciplinary biospheric artist, researcher, and educator, utilizing her decades-long exploration of natural elements to bridge the worlds of art and science through a unique style of layered imagery centering on the environment. With her unique vision and process, Dana is a leader in the area of mixed media montage. Dana.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming. Can you all hear me okay? Okay.
Yes.
All right. I'm going to share my window and hopefully it works. Yes?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. So I mostly use this residency to help me kind of structure and work out some ideas I had for a large video project that I'm doing on the outside of a building at Georgia Tech. university. And so while there are some complete pieces, which I know I'm not showing now, but mostly this is just a lot of kind of raw footage, and then some completed imagery that I will then use in the overall video. So I'm going to show you raw like photographs, and then some like printmaking, jelly prints, cyanotypes, and both using macro and micro photography and painting and just mixed media. I'm also going to show some, basically the overall idea is showing plankton in its environment. So I'll show you some raw footage of that as well. Okay, so these are just some close-ups in a tide pool, and here are some other just tide pools. Not sure why that was there, but here are some, this is cyanotype and some things that kelp and seaweed that I got from the beach, and I use those repeatedly. That's why they have some paint on them, but I use them in the jelly prints, which is it's a surface that is soft that you can embed objects, and you'll create the texture, like the negative from it. And so that, whoops. So these are just some samples, and also behind me, you can see some other samples as well. And here's just, again, this is a sea anemone, and there's so many of them in the rocks, and having them, if you're not like familiar with them, you can like touch them and then open and close, but they're in clusters. So this is just one of them that I was able, and the picture's kind of blurry, but the cool thing about it is all the little fragmentations of shells in between there. This is just a drawing and a painting, kind of thinking about the intertidal zone, and also how the color of the water changes depending on like the amount of phytoplankton that's in the water at the time. It's affected by the weather. And the paper that I used is a very soft paper. So I was actually able to embed little circles in it. So it has like a relief quality to it, which you can't necessarily see on this, but just some seaweed. And I love the color there. This is the area where I was taking most of my pictures from during this residency for 5 weeks. And here are some Dalio lids. They're barrel-shaped plankton, phytoplankton. Around them is just more samples, like more microscopic. And sorry. So I'm working with a couple different scientists who use these kind of shadow cameras on the back of a ship, and they're able to capture both stills and video of the phytoplankton. And so they've been kind enough to work with me on this and provide imagery, and also explain a lot of things to me that I don't know. And here are just some more. So these are obviously microscopic. And some more of these. So what I do is I take these and then I'll put them like in, oh, okay, if I can, I'm going to try to, oh, I don't know if this is going to work. I guess at another time you can look at this. Basically, it was just, it was a video of the phytoplankton moving around. So, and this is a partial just starting of a collage using the phytoplankton, and behind it is kelp and some materials I collected on the beach. This is another one. And so all of these like little snippets and collages will be embedded into a big video with the plankton and phytoplankton and zooplankton swimming around it. And you will see that in the final piece. And here's just some more, and you can make out like where some of the plankton is, like here. Here's another one. There are some maps also included in this, and weather related, like wind. These are like wind patterns that I also like to include. Here's some barnacles. And this is another piece. And just an abalone shell with barnacles growing on it. And that is the end of my presentation.
La posibilidad de compartir su video. Entonces, Dana Mondlak es una artista biosférica, es decir, trabaja con la biosfera, interdisciplinaria, investigadora y educadora que utiliza sus décadas de exploración de los elementos naturales para formar un puente entre los mundos del arte y la ciencia a través de un estilo único de imágenes en capas, centrado en el medio ambiente. Centrándose en el medio ambiente. Como habrán visto recién, compartió esos collages que arma de manera digital a través de fotografías propias, elementos que encuentra y fotografía, y lo vuelca a un formato digital. Con su visión y procesos únicos, Dana es una referente en el área del montaje de medios mixtos. Thank you very much. So, Frida, it's all yours.
Our next artist is Ovatsu Figueiredo. Please correct me afterwards. Who is a Brazilian visual artist whose practice moves across expanded painting, material construction, and critical research. His work investigates painting as a physical and temporal system in which matter, color, gravity, accumulation, and instability participate actively in the formation of the work. Ovatsu.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. So I will try to share my screen. I'm a Brazilian visual artist based in Arraial do Cabo. It's on the coast of Rio de Janeiro. In these few minutes, I would like to introduce you the series SOS Oceans. It's a body of work in which I investigate painting as material research under conditions of pressure, accumulation, and ecological vulnerability. So the central point is simple. I do not approach the ocean primarily as an image or a landscape. I approach it as a physical system. And I ask what it happens when some of its conditions enter the material logical of painting. So this is my studio in Arraial do Cabo. I wanted to begin here because the studio is not just a place where the works are made. They are like part of this research field. And the paintings remain together for long periods. I take more than 6 months to do a piece, and the paintings remain together, and they are a little bit contaminated by water. They dry, they cure, they receive gravity, sediments, fractures, and sometimes they just change in ways that are only primarily predictable. So time is not external to the work. The drying time, the curing time, and the behavior of the materials participate in the formation of the image. Um, this is an important work. So this series, the SOS series, started before I started the residency, and I have 10 pieces on the whole series. I'm going to show you some of them. And the last two ones were made here in the residence. So it's a long duration hinge, this submerged infrastructure. It's the genealogy of SOS Oceans. It begins with this structure. It was developed in between 2012 and 2024, so more than 10 years. And this work is important because painting begins here to leave the plane and accumulate as a spatial structure, residue, and weight. It's made on solid wood with mixed materials, incorporated elements, and over time it became less an image of something submerged and more like a body that itself undergone duration, density, pressure, and for me, this work become a hinge. It's like a transition from pictorial construction toward a spatial body. And this one, it was still made mostly with painting, like points of painting. Um, so here is one already made in 2026, this year. Um, and here I would like to bring the curatorial premise. This brings me to a point that ocean is not treated as a landscape, so I don't intend to paint ocean as an image. I instead try to construct material situations in which pressure, salinity, erosion, oxidation, bleaching, contamination, and sedimentation operates a pictorial conditions. So I'm not trying to simulate this process scientifically. The movement it's much more artistic and material. And the question is not how can I illustrate ecological collapse. The question for me is what happened when this instability that we are living in the contemporary world becomes part of how painting is physically organized. So I would like to put some image of the painting. As you see, there is a dense material research where I use plaster, resins, oxycowan, pigments, and the forms and the pigments, they are uh, together coming out through the material behavior and the research. So to start simple, so here you have the abyssal ocean and the organic seaweed. Um, and in abyssal ocean and organic seaweed, the patient move through ideas of deep growth and sedimentations, and the surface is organized to dense matter, pigments, binders, mineral, resins, pigments, and accumulated layers. Here is Red Sea and sea breeze corrosion with these both works. corrosion is especially interesting because it destabilizes the distinction between construction and destructions. It damages a surface, but it also produces another surface, and the same is true of bloom, oxidation, and sedimentation. They reorganize the matter. So color is not simply placed on the top of the work. It becomes entangled with density, texture, and transformation. Um, and why this matters in the United Nations Ocean Decade? Because the question is not only what the oceans look like, but what forms of instability it produces when its contemporary pressure conditions enter the work. So I don't want to simulate the ocean. I want to bring with the material research some instability, some pressures, some physical forces and systems that can talk with this collapse of the ocean. So here I have another sample. So the series proposes a painting as a kind of material archive of pressure, a way of thinking ocean vulnerability through density, resistance, residue, transformation, as a physical behavior. Um, So here we have two other pieces, preserved beach and polluted beach. And it's quite important for me, these two pieces, mainly because of the colors. I'm using sea from the beach that we have here in the preservation area. So the pictorial edification, it's like a technique I'm building. I want to show another sample. So I use sometimes seashell. And this is the polluted and destruction. So I am using some materials, and they can like in pigment or pigmentary layer. And as you can see, color behavior also depends on the material. Uh, And so these are two more pieces, bleached corals and pollution and destruction. And I think my time is already gone. So these are the pieces I can show you. And it's important because on the residency, I could go to another level in the research. I started to do some more objects, pictorial objects, and the work came too much more layers and matter than before. So here another small sample. And here was research with the pocket poem, trying to think about this bleach coral. It was really important, the interaction and the and we had with the bees. So this piece I'm not gonna show you too long. It's just this is the most important piece I made during the residence. It's just a sample here so you can see better in the exhibition. I would really like to finish this presentation thanking the Mango residents, the Moku, and especially Quelly, Dana, Sora, Lauri, Paula, Mercedes, Frida, for all the conversation, the exchange during this process. So for me, SOS Oceans, this series, remains an open investigation into how painting can respond to ecological vulnerability without simply illustrating, it's more like how matter itself can become a way of thinking through a world under pressure. So that's it. Thank you.
Gracias, Gustavo. Thank you very much. I will speak in Spanish now. Voy a hablar en español sobre Gustavo, sobre Obatzuk Figueiredo. Figueiredo. Es un artista visual brasileño cuya práctica se mueve a través de la pintura expandida, la construcción material y la investigación crítica. Su trabajo investiga la pintura como un sistema físico y temporal en el que la materia, el color, la gravedad, la acumulación y la inestabilidad participan activamente en la formación de la obra. Lo que Gustavo nos compartió recientemente es su proceso de creación, donde su mayor reto ha sido salirse del Canva tradicional, del lienzo tradicional, cargando de textura, pero no necesariamente de textura propiamente dicha, sino que ha creado paisajes no pictóricos, sino de la vivencia del océano, del mar, en su estado de emergencia, mostrándonos la erosión del mar, la corrosión salina y otros atributos que ha compartido con nosotros aquí. Y durante la residencia, lo último que mostró también es su reto que se ha salido, ha trasladado esto a objetos, a un objeto, y este fue su mayor fuerte durante la residencia, este objeto arte que podrán visualizar en la exposición sin ninguna duda. Es imponente, tiene mucha presencia, y los invitamos a compartir esta obra y todas las obras de nuestros artistas. Vamos a continuar con nuestro siguiente artista. Gracias, Gustavo. Frida.
Our next artist is Sora Kitawana-Whitfield, an early career multimedia artist and social scientist. She works across animation, collage, comics, painting, sculpture, fiber, sound, photography, and found materials. Her practice explores memory, invention, imagination, belonging, environment, fantasy, and the ways stories shape how people understand themselves and the world around them. Sora.
I'm going to share the screen in one moment. Thank you. And thank you for the introduction. Okay, can you guys see the screen?
Yes.
Thank you. Well, I don't have a presentation. I have these slides, but let's see. So I'm going to start off. My name is Zora. I'm an artist, animator, social scientist, inventor, and improvisation actress. And I am from Columbus, Ohio, but now I'm based in the Bay Area. This is a picture of me and some of my animations and illustrations. I just started animating in 2024. And I was inspired to animate because I've always been really inspired by my family's cultural traditions of storytelling, specifically African-American traditions of storytelling that I grew up around. And it really made me a very curious and just very imaginative person all the way into my adult years. So next. So this project overview, I want to say the project started with my fascination about this article right here. It was talking about whale deaths that happened in 2024, 2025, going into 2024, specifically gray whales in the Bay Area. And I was really touched by those articles because I realized I didn't know much about whales, but I thought that it was super sad that the whale death rate was going up so much in the past few years. And I was like, I wonder what I can do about it, because I really cared. And when I looked it up, I saw that there were a lot of legal things happening where people were trying to tackle whale deaths for like by legal or policy means. I saw that there were a lot of people who were like, oh, save the whales. But I was trying to figure out like, how could I, through art, encapsulate how I feel about this problem and advocate for whales to not be dying at such a high rate or at all in the Bay Area where I live. So I asked myself, while asking myself what I can do, I went through the residency and I realized, as I say here, like I didn't really have a strong connection to whales. While I was drawn to whales, I like, obviously I don't see whales every day. So I was like, I have this mythical whale in my head. And I started thinking of like all the places in culture that I've learned about whales. Like, I don't know, like Pinocchio's whale or Jonah and his story with the whale. And I was like, wow, I have this mythical whale in my head. And I decided that I actually needed to learn more about whales. So I employed these research methods. So I didn't get to do this, but I wanted to go see a whale in real life. I wanted to make a whale in my image. I wanted to do community engagement regarding whales, asking people what their connections were to whales. And I just wanted to think and reflect on my whale, my biases around them, and the influences of those biases. And my ultimate goal is to create an animation or comic featuring my connection to whales and developing like a personal philosophy about that connection. So the next slide is a myth study. So I ended up doing a lot of research into whales and like historical views of whales so that I could get a deeper understanding of whales. I specifically wanted to see other artists' views of whales, and people have been fascinated with whales for centuries. So this is the first one right here. This is a painting that I found made in the late 15th century, and it pictures Jonah being thrown into the sea from a small boat where he tumbles straight into the jaws of a great fish. And my reflection on this was that a lot of whales that were drawn in this era kind of looked human-like, because people were very confused about whale anatomy. They were like, oh, their anatomy is so odd in comparison to other creatures, and they're so big. And when I was reading the writings that were connected to this, they were saying that, oh, these are beastly creatures, like we don't quite understand their anatomy. And this second one is two whales attacking a ship. This is a print. I don't have the date on here, but it was also made around the same time, like I believe like the 14th century. And it shows whales looking, in this picture, you see that they drew the whales kind of looking like boats. The artist who made this piece, whose name is not on here, they had never seen whales before, and they were going based off of like folklore that they'd heard about whales to draw whales and depict like stories they had heard about sailors in the seas. And I just thought it was so interesting because that was another theme I saw, that like in the past, like artists who hadn't seen whales would like draw them as like these mythical creatures. Like if you look at the top, you can see it does look kind of like a machine, like the way they drew the whales. Something else that's interesting about this picture though is that if you zoom in, you see that these they're trying to control the whale's behavior and try to distract them. There's like a person playing the trumpet because apparently whales really like music. That's like in folklore, and I actually believe it's true. And then also they're distracting the whales with barrels. So I think that this piece is pretty funny. The next one, I didn't get to see this movie, but I did a lot of research into this concept of whale riders in New Zealand. And right now there's actually a really respected researcher who's Indigenous in New Zealand, and they're advocating for whales to get like more personhood. And the way that they're doing this is they're kind of this is a fictional story, but it's like based off of like real people who were potentially like whale riders, and how they have connections to whales and like in their culture. So this is like a very positive connection to whale and contemporary artwork. And then this last piece is a painting. It's another like painting of a whale that really just inspired me. That's also quite contemporary. So next I want to talk about taboos. So when I was researching, I found out that there were a lot of taboos around whales, and I got inspired by taboos and researching them because of the cultural researcher who came in and spoke to us, the ancestral and cultural researcher. And as I was reading about whales, I found that throughout history, whales were categorized as good or bad based on how they connected to human values. And I connected that to utilitarianism a little bit, and like theories of utilitarianism where like whales were viewed as good. They literally had a list of good and bad whales that you can tell based off of like the whales' names. Like some whales to this day still carry names that are based in this moral thing, like how they morally categorize the whale. And so like, for instance, some of those are sperm whales, red whale, horse whales. And so I just think after like reading about these taboos, I just thought it was super interesting that whales that were like, for instance, one whale was seen as evil because it was not edible, and then they were enemies to humanity. But then some whales were viewed as helpful because they would help drive fish to fishermen's boats. And I was like, it's so funny because as humans, we are categorizing different creatures as moral based off of how useful they are to us. And that's kind of how we view moral. That's one theory of moral and ethics. It's very popular, specifically in Western culture, attributing value to people based off of how useful they are to achieving a holistic moral good for everyone. But as we're seeing as I saw when I was researching this could sometimes be very flawed, and we could end up making some creatures have negative stories about them that aren't true. And this is at the bottom, it's something about the cultural narrative of whales that's changing, and how there's a lot of advocacy trying to get whales to have legal personhood as ocean ambassadors in the United Nations, which I found to be very interesting, because still like having personhood is still connecting it to humans in a way that reminds me of still like older narratives. But it's something that I'm like looking more into and thinking about, like what does it mean to give personhood to nature? So the next part that I'm going to talk about is a texture archive that I created. So this is where I start making the animation. So I love taking photos of textures. I'm very drawn to textures. I was very drawn to other people in my cohort, their artwork, because of their textures and their art. And these are some photos that I took. And I'm really into, at this point, trying to figure out the origins of textures, because I realize like sometimes I navigate the world and I don't think like, how did that happen? And I just think that it just is. So I really challenge myself to take pictures of things and identify where they're from. And these are some examples of pictures that I took. This is like fiberglass and some reaction that's happening to fiberglass. This is water runoff. These are turkey feathers, a dried palm. This is the inside of an oxidized mushroom. This is window glass that's like corroding right here, which I thought was really beautiful. And this is osmosis on fiberglass again. And I really loved these textures, and I decided to incorporate them into my animation. More textures that I did were from paintings that I did. So this is watercolor, acrylic, and found materials. And so I decided to try to recreate the texture of water through these found materials through photography. And these are some of the samples of what I created. And not all of the photos are on here, but these are just examples of some textures that I ended up incorporating into my animation. So since my art project's about whales, I decided that I should make whales to try to get more connected to them. And so this is kind of the process. So I got cloth and I found a whole bunch of buttons that were made out of materials like bone, steel, and plastic, metal, and some of them potentially made out of whalebone. And I just thought that I was really fascinated again by the material of buttons and how the material is connected to a lot of materials that are in the ocean, especially histories of, like, as I said, some buttons being made out of whale bones or parts of whales and different creatures. So I thought it would be beautiful to make a whale out of whale bones. And as you can see, this is kind of like my process. I drew a whale on a piece of fabric. I cut the fabric off. I made it into segments. And my goal was to make the whale as flexible as possible so that I could move it around for the animation. These are examples of what I produced. Some of the puppets. I made 2 different ones. And these are some assets that I used to have for the animation. And wait, let me zoom in a little bit. But if you look in, you can see all the buttons and all the textures and materials. And that just really inspired me a lot in terms of making the whale. I thought that it told both a story of the whale, but also the materials. This is kind of like a mood board that I made for my animation for things that were inspiring me. So the themes that I had in my, oh wait, first I'll go through this. So first I want to say whales make these Fibonacci spirals that people say with their tails. This is an example of what it looks like. I'm not quite sure all the way how they make them, but they make these Fibonacci spirals by splashing their tails. This is some of the recreation of me mirroring this throughout the art here. So this is some of my art. Also, I wanted to kind of get whale movement. So this is me trying to get some whale movements, some tests of that, and a picture of a final thing. And this is my character that I designed right here, and some draft work of that. And the themes that I wanted in the animation, which I decided before I made the animation, was the whale is a protector, the whale is resilient, and the whale is autonomous. And symbols that I wanted were the Fibonacci spiral, myth, fear of whales. So like, I didn't really say this, but when I saw in the beginning, like how people depicted whales, it was very based on people fearing whales and fearing the unknown of like a lot of things about them and them not serving humanity. So I wanted to play on that in the animation and have talk about the fear and challenge the fear of whales, whale evolution, whale resilience, human projection, and radical personalization of my connection with whales. And before I show the animation, these are two different scenes. These are examples of scenes that I made with the textures that I collected. So it's just one like little thing, like one picture from some of the scenes. So I'll just flip through them really quickly. This is one of the evolutionary, I didn't go all the way scientifically with the evolution, but this is one of the evolutionary forms of the whale. And this is the last picture. Okay, so that's it. And now I'm gonna quickly show the video. Let me see if I can share the screen. Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. And then let me know if you can hear it. So before I do the animation, I want to say that I wanted to collaborate with someone who actually did whale opera singing. And I don't have the audio now, but I made like this improvised audio while I was really tired. So this is what the audio is for now. And I don't know if it'll change, but I do hope that I can collaborate with the other artists. Meow, meow, meow. La, la, la. Meow, meow, meow. Ooh. Swish, 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 stomp, stomp, stomp. So that was the final animation. I'm not sure what you guys saw happening there, but it's just kind of like a play on like whales' connection to humans and again challenging narratives of fear around whales in kind of a mythical way. But I have more of a description of it later on in the exhibition. But yes, thank you for watching.
Thank you, Zora, very much. I will speak in Spanish now. Entonces, voy a hablar sobre Zora. Zora Kidwana Wilfield es una artista multimedia y científica social en el inicio de su carrera. Trabaja en animación, collage, cómics, pintura, escultura, fibra, sonido, fotografía y materiales encontrados. Su práctica explora la memoria, la invención, la imaginación, la pertenencia, el medio ambiente, la fantasía y las formas en que las historias moldean la manera en que las personas se entienden a sí mismas y al mundo que las rodea. Aquí nos compartió su proceso creativo y finalmente su animación. Pueden continuar viendo todo esto en la residencia, en el link que les compartiremos luego de nuestra última, pero no menos importante, próxima artista, Frida.
Last but not least, we have Laurie Havenstein. Please correct my pronunciation, Laurie, of your last name. I'm very sorry. She is an interdisciplinary artist and photographer who examines the delicate interplay of light, color, and location. Her practice emerges from a distinct set of personal and professional influences, from scuba diving and dream work to research and color design. Laurie.
Thank you so much. And I just have to say, like, I'm almost choked up. I'm so in awe of the work that everyone's produced in this short period of time. I'm really honored to be in this group, and thank you for hanging in, the audience. I am going to share my screen, and let's see. I think it's this one. Yes. And Okay. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay. So my name is Laurie Havenstein, and I'm an interdisciplinary artist and photographer. I live in the Sacramento, California area. And I think of my work as a form of storytelling, but I use light and color and very simple shapes to express something that my research has uncovered about the place where the work is being shown. Let me show you a couple of examples. This piece, called Chromatic Improvisation, was a way of honoring the history of an old restored warehouse in Baltimore, actually. The hanging panels on the left are scale models of the 1920 originals that were taken out of the building when it was modernized. And I covered the panels with a special material called dichroic film. And you can see how it causes that rainbow of colors that appears when the sunlight hits it at a certain angle. And dichroic means two-colored, and you can see how that film is splitting the light so that different colors are being projected onto the wall and onto the floor. And here you see one small section of a really large window installation titled Magic Staircase. It spans 2 floors of a stairwell in an Art Deco building that once housed the arcade of a 1940s amusement park. The shapes all represent things that are found there. For example, that large blue circle in the middle with the yellow triangle relates to the design on the roof of the historic carousel. And if you look really carefully at that purpley pink turquoise area, you get a sense of how that dichroic film shifts colors. So as you're walking by it, you might first see pink and then purple and then some other color. And so what does any of this have to do with the ocean? Well, one of my greatest passions is scuba diving. And for nearly 4 decades, I've been blessed to swim alongside some of the most striking coral formations on Earth, photographing the ocean's amazing inhabitants and very pristine reefs. Sadly, I've also witnessed changes that are happening to those reefs due to human, natural, and climate impacts, including coral bleaching, and what you see here is actually a bacterial disease. And I feel really motivated to use my creative skills to help foster an appreciation and some concern for this really wonderful but fragile ecosystem. So this residency gave me the opportunity to really think about how to move my artwork in that direction. So I started the process with a lot of search queries, combining keywords like light, color, ocean health. And I thought about questions from my underwater experiences like, what color is the ocean really? And why does it look so different from one place to another, in one photograph to another? What role does light play? And what about depth? And is there anything that light or color, two things I'm really passionate about, could tell us about changes and threats to the ocean? So this searching led me to a fabulous online resource where all of my questions were answered. I wish I had the time to share with you all that I learned. It's fascinating and beautifully complex, having a lot to do with how sunlight interacts with particles in the water. I really encourage you to check it out. It's from NASA, their PACE website, which stands for Plankton, Aerosol, Cloud, and Ocean Ecosystem. 2 years ago, they actually launched this satellite that has special technology that measures the color of the ocean. Like it goes around the whole globe and captures the color of all the oceans on Earth every 2 days. So I was really inspired by this site and this project, and I reached out to them to let them know about this residency project and my interest in, kind of sharing information. I was thrilled when they not only responded, but they put me in touch with the mission's science designer, who I was able to meet in person and has become an incredibly helpful and supportive collaborator on my project. So she helped me locate this high resolution imagery that's taken off the coastline of California and got me very excited about her area of specialty, which is plankton, and the critical role that they play, not only in ocean color, but in the health of our planet. They actually produce half of the oxygen that we breathe on Earth, and they're the primary producers on the food chain in the ocean. So they make their own food from the sun, and then something eats them and something eats that, and starts the whole process. So I learned that many of these plankton, particularly the diatoms that you see here, actually form hard shells that are made of silica, which is basically glass. And so they can refract and reflect and transmit light, something like that dichroic film I was speaking of earlier. So with all these thoughts flying around in my head, an idea began to emerge to tell this ocean color story, but from an artist's perspective, and through light and color and the shapes placed on a window. Ideally, I wanted that window to be in a public place to bring the story to a larger audience and in a way that would be locally relevant. I mentioned I live near Sacramento, California, which is easily 100 miles from the Pacific Ocean. You can see in this map, however, that the Sacramento River, which flows south and then to the west into the Sacramento-San Joaquin River Delta, where it kind of starts to get bigger, and then into the San Francisco Bay, which opens up into the Pacific Ocean. So we are some distance from the ocean, but literally connected to it by a river. And this is a close-up image from that satellite view that I shared earlier. And you can see where that sediment from the bay is pouring into the ocean. And the many different colored plumes that might be plankton blooms, they might be, other kinds of particles. But I wanted to incorporate these colorful ocean patterns into my window design and then integrate them with shapes of California marine phytoplankton, kind of like the macro and the micro of the ocean color question. My challenge has been finding a suitable location willing to host the work. So I made a long list of possible venues, and I visited as many of them as I could in person: an aquarium, several art galleries, all the local libraries and museums. But there was one that stood out far and above the others, and I'm thrilled to say they've recently given me the thumbs up to move forward. And that is the Sacramento Museum of Science and Curiosity. It's a really beautiful facility. It's built on an abandoned 1912 power station that sits right on the Sacramento River. Their programming emphasizes science, technology, engineering, arts, and math for all ages, but really geared towards kids K through 12. And I love especially that a lot of their exhibits address global and local environmental issues and how communities can build a sustainable future. So visitors enter that main door, and as they do, they'll have a direct view of my work, which will be installed in this window. It's quite large, about 11 feet from the floor area to that sort of first big divider at the top. And there will be interpretive text on the adjacent wall to the left. And I want you to notice the patterns on the floor that are made by the sunlight coming through the window. I spent a whole day there last week just watching the light and figuring out where to place the design and how to optimize the color. And here's sort of a mood board palette. It's my palette basically on glass, showing that the ocean plumes will be the green, blue, and moving into indigo colors that you see at the top. And then the magenta, red, and orange will be the plankton that will surround the ocean colors. But as they overlap, it'll be using that dichroic film that you see at the bottom left. It's kind of hard to tell from this flat image, but they really show the full spectrum of color, like cyan, purple, pink, orange, yellow, magenta, and even sometimes green, just among those three different films. So I did make a very, very early rough concept sketch, and it's available in our virtual exhibition site, along with some additional photos of my process for how I install the film. And I'll be updating the site as the work progresses. I'm aiming to complete the window sometime later this fall, but this is my only text slide, which I'm sharing not for you to read, but just to get a sense of how much is left to be done. Some of these steps, like number 3, build vector graphics, are likely to take weeks. And my parting shot, I was not kidding when I said that museum is right on the Sacramento River. And my window will be towards the back of that domed building facing the water. And truly, it could not be more perfect. So a big thank you to all of the people and organizations that have made this residency possible. I am deeply grateful, and thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Lori, for sharing all your journey with us, and for letting us and all your cohort be part of the process as well. So I will go to Spanish now. Entonces, Lori Havenstein es una artista interdisciplinaria y fotógrafa que examina la delicada interacción entre la luz, el color y la ubicación. Su práctica surge de un conjunto distintivo de influencias personales y profesionales, desde el buceo y el trabajo con sueños hasta la investigación y el diseño de color. Nos acaba de compartir su proceso, nosotros lo llamamos como un viaje, que fue recorriendo para donde, bueno, se le abrieron puertas y oportunidades a través de su trabajo intenso y su investigación y sus conexiones dentro de Sacramento. Es una región en California donde finalmente podrá exhibir su proyecto en lo que ella describe no podría ser el lugar más perfecto para que esto sucediera. pueden ir de nuevo al link que les compartiremos enseguida para seguir el trabajo de Lori y de todos los artistas aquí presentes. Bueno, vamos a dar el cierre, Frida en inglés, luego yo en español. Gracias.
Well, we are at the closing part, you guys. We are profoundly grateful to the artists of the Ocean Virtual Art Residency for sharing their passion, their insights, their extraordinary creativity in 6 weeks. They did an amazing, incredible job. You don't realize how short time is for some of these projects. So we want to be very grateful for your participation and your trust in us and our program. To everyone joining us, we hope this exhibition will ignite awe, instill a sense of ownership, and foster a shared responsibility for our ocean. We invite you to visit the live virtual exhibition link that we will place on the chat to experience the final works created by the artists, as this is a UN Ocean Decade endorsed activity. And as part of the experience, you will also find a link to a feedback form where you can share your thoughts, reflections, and responses with the artists that will be shared as well with the exhibition. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for being with us today. At the closing, the artists, please stay behind. Meti.
Ok, bueno, queremos agradecer enormemente a los artistas por estas 6 semanas compartidas. Fue una convivencia muy profunda, muy conectada, especialmente entre ellos, pero fue muy enriquecedora para todos y queremos agradecerles su confianza y compartir sus creaciones a través de nuestras plataformas. Vamos a dejar el link en el chat, que Frida ya lo hizo, y en el chat de YouTube, que ya está puesto ahí, para que puedan ir a navegar a sus tiempos esta exposición. Recomendamos que lo hagan desde un ordenador, desde una computadora, porque es más navegable. Y queremos recordarles que este es un programa y actividad oficial de las Naciones Unidas, UN Ocean Decade, por el diseño del océano. Muchas gracias a la audiencia por estar aquí y compartir con nosotros este espacio, este momento, y a los artistas que se queden después de nuestro cierre. Muchas gracias, que disfruten y gracias por compartir con nosotros este espacio y este momento. Hasta pronto. Bye.
Thanks so much, everybody. Wonderful day, night, week, evening.
Buenas tardes, buenos días, buenas tardes, buenas noches, donde sea que estén. Gracias.